when the first stories of mass graves and genocide started coming out, and even going back to when Senator Lynn Bayak stood up in the Senate and said, hey, a lot of people benefited from Indian residential schools. I wrote her a letter based on my research at the time saying that that's true. Some did suffer, but many did benefit. So, the whole concept of a genocide just is ludicrous, because I also did a documentary on the many genocides in the world, and it was so dark that we actually decided not to release it. But what went on at residential schools was not genocide. And I even argue that it was not cultural genocide, because many of the Oblate Fathers actually made written forms for these Indigenous oral languages, which had no written form before. They created dictionaries. They in Kamloops, one priest was publishing a regular weekly newspaper in what was known as Chinook Wawa, which was kind of a variation on shorthand, but it allowed people to read all this information from the local tribes in a very simple and easy way. So, I've rejected the genocide concept for a long time. And I think, when the first story of mass graves came out, I too felt terrible. But it was my understanding that, what probably had been discovered at the time might have been like a mass grave related to, say, a typhus epidemic or tuberculosis, passing of a family, because entire families often passed away from it, or cholera, Spanish flu.
Yeah.
But I didn't ever think that there was something nefarious going on. And so I guess I just started talking from my heart, and realizing there are, I think, about 500,000 Aboriginal people in Canada who are Catholics. So, and their families were Catholics long before they ever went to residential school or continued in the Catholic faith. And there's another, I think, about 200,000 who are Christians of other denominations. So, this is really a divisive issue within the Aboriginal community, as well as in the broader Canadian community. And it's a total distortion of history. So I feel the burden of all the people I interviewed back in the 80s. I feel I have to carry their stories forward and create some balance in the narrative.
And so how do you respond to accusations of this new shut up? The new shut up is if you question the official narrative by the bands, and I guess by extension, the Trudeau government, that the residential schools were a form of genocide and that there are these mass graves at many of the former residential schools, that you are a residential school denialist. How do you respond to that?
Well, I usually start pulling out historical documents and books. Like, here's the volume 1 of the official history of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, or the Northwest Mounted Police, as they were called at the time. So these things were documented at the time. And that's the historical record. So I pull out these kinds of documents. There's nobody in the 1800s, or 1900s sitting there thinking, wow, I bet in the future somebody's going to want to, accuse us of doing bad things. So let's just hide them. That's not a thing. So, in fact, most people are unaware that in the United States, there were Indian wars going on there between the U.S. cavalry and Native people from 1644. And they went until 1924. So while we were educating Indigenous people in Canada, giving them the skills of reading, writing, arithmetic, with which they are now using today to launch class action lawsuits against non-Indigenous people and the government of Canada and the Roman Catholic Church and other churches, while we were educating and caring for these children, the United States was hunting down and gunning down Indigenous people. These were real wars, and they were really vicious. And in some cases, certainly Native people in the U.S. were provoked because settlers kept coming in and just plunking themselves down on what looked like, here's some good farmland. I'm going to sit here. There was no treaty. So Native people would say, hey, wait a minute, you're sitting on our land. Boom, boom. People would shoot each other. Cavalry would come in, chaos. That never happened in Canada. In Canada, we had trading partners with the Aboriginal people from the earliest times here. I think the first Christian convert in Canada was back in the 1600s. And Indigenous people adopted Christianity because they saw that somehow these people coming here had manifestly more useful things, tools. Now, whether they understood it as some kind of magical spiritual advantage, or whether they felt there was an alignment, a spiritual alignment with many of the aspects of Christianity, they adopted it and they became trading partners. So we have, over 300 years of trading, economic trade partnerships with Aboriginal communities. At any time, they could have overwhelmed and murdered the small groups of people who came here had they wanted to. And, certainly there were a couple of priests who were brutally murdered down in the Ontario region. I can't remember, but that was very early on. But subsequently, it was a trade arrangement. That's what we've always had in Canada, and it's completely different than in the United States. It's a completely different relationship.